Hi, this is Dark Shades, and this is the Life Skills series. And today's video is about why get married. Now, whatever the case may be, some couples choose to live together without the benefit of legal union. There are, however, differences between how marriage and cohabitation relationships are viewed underneath the law. So let's get this legal jargon out of the way, and then we'll go into a more user-friendly discussion. Although there's no legal definition of living together, it usually means living together as though a couple, but without being married. You can formalize aspects of your status with a partner by drawing up a legal agreement called a cohabitation contract or living together agreement. If you're going to go through all of that, you might as well get married, I would say. But maybe not. When you get married, you're actually extending your family, aren't you? Because you start getting in-laws and the whole of the gamut that comes with that. So if you're family oriented, you might want a larger family, especially if you don't have much of a family yourself. There's also society's view of somebody who's married as opposed to somebody living together. As much as we've evolved over the years, people still look with some kind of scrutiny and some kind of skepticism on people or couples who live together. There's also the brain. The brain links getting married to commitment and living together as a lack of commitment. Marriage has been linked to physical health, that feeling of security, the feeling that there's somebody going to be there. So it kind of builds up your self-esteem. And they have said that, even when people have been married for years and one partner dies, the other partner usually dies shortly afterwards. So there is some evidence to support that. Marriage is also linked to trust and reliability for obvious reasons, or even though sometimes that doesn't happen. And what you'll find is once you get married, you tend not to bother with friends and relatives so much. Your husband or your spouse becomes your be-all and end-all. And I'm not quite sure if that's healthy, but sometimes depending on the marriage, you can sustain those relationships. There is the thought that if you live together, there's more autonomy. I'm not quite sure how that works, but I think it's more to do with creativity in the relationship. And of course, if you get married, you're responsible for the spouse's debt. That is one of the downsides. If you're unmarried or in a civil partnership, you can leave all of your assets to your partner without him or her facing a tax bill. Did you know that? And if you're living together, you can leave up to $325,000 of assets tax-free. I'm assuming that's property. Anything above that will, of course, be taxed 40% as of today, 2017. But you can't do that if you're living together. Your assets are not transferable in the same way. Unmarried couples are also treated differently when it comes to capital gains tax. Spouses can give each other assets without being taxed at 18%. Cohabiting couples can't transfer in the same way, but you need to seek legal advice on that. If you intend to live together with someone and own a property together, I suggest you take out a tenants in common. Solicitors will be able to tell you the implications of that. But it just means that if somebody's put in 50%, somebody's put in 20%, it is an agreement that allows you to proportion as opposed to cutting it right down the middle, 50-50, which is not always fair. And unless you're living in Scotland where there's laws regulating what happens to property when a cohabiting couple splits up, if you split up with somebody you live with, your right to the property will depend on how you own it. If it's a joint purchase, it will be presumed that the net proceeds will be divided equally, even if one partner put more money in. However, if you're living together, and you've only got one sole owner, the court will say it belongs to them regardless of how much you've contributed, unless you've got evidence to prove it. I think people are a bit wise now, though. They tend to pay money, especially if they're living with somebody, through their bank account. If you're living with somebody, don't use cash. I know I watch Judge Judy a lot, and a lot of people, they don't have evidence. I mean, they're in love, they're living together, they're sharing stuff together. When everything's going good, it's fine. It's when it goes downhill when there's a problem. So, you know, you can set up an account, set up the account that you're going to pay money into without it coming over as as though you're monitoring or as though you're checking, just by saying, look, you know, I don't want to miss any payments. I want to make sure that you get your money every month. So I prefer to do that by direct debit. And I think if you say it like that, either party will understand that, you know, it's a way of getting regular payment, and they might not clock that it's a way of recording evidence as well, which is really what you want to do. Anyway, that's the first part of this video. We don't want it to go on too long, otherwise it gets a bit monotonous. So I'm going to stop it here, and we'll go into part 2 very soon.